There's something great about capturing an image that is different and unique when on location, and that's what this video is all about. Hi and welcome to this video on how I created this high key image. Since posting this image on social media, I've had a lot of requests on how I created this high key image. I'll explain my process on location and then how I edited it within Lightroom. Many high key photographs are taken within studios where there's great control of light. So what we're looking for is a high contrast light within the landscape that we can take advantage of. And we can see in this scene, it lent itself perfectly to a high key image capture. The overcast clouds in the background created a high white dynamic setting, and the whiteness of the horse with the shadows created the high key that we were looking for. This is the image that I captured on location. So now let's jump into Adobe Lightroom and I'll show you how I edited this image. We've opened up Lightroom now, and as you can see, we've got our source image. I'll initially create the high key color image, and then I'll move on to creating the high key black and white image. So first things first, let's create a virtual copy of our raw file. And now we'll open the develop module. Now that we're in the develop module, the first thing that I will do is switch the profile to Adobe Landscape. I'm now also going to crop it. It's not quite in the dimensions that I require. I want a slightly narrower image, so I'm going to switch it to 4:5. I'm going to align it so that the eye is on the left and third, as we can see right here. I think that's a much stronger impact for this image. First thing I want to do with this image is actually to really highlight the eye details. So what I'm going to do is create a subject mask. So we've got that selected now within Lightroom. And what I really want to do, I want to pull out the shadows in that. So I'm going to bring that up so you can see that I'm bringing that up. We don't want to overdo it, but you can see the color is starting to appear now. So what I really want to do is really highlight the details and bring out the details in the eye. There's a little bit, I just want to drop the contrast back a little bit so we keep the detail in the eye but not saturate out everything around the eye. So I think that's about perfect just there. And I now want to have a look at the overall image. So let's close the mask down, and what I want to do is bring up the exposure. Let's just drop the highlights just a little bit and the shadows as well. We're trying to create that dynamic high key, high contrast image. So if I just up the contrast just a little bit, drop the whites down as well, up the exposure a little bit, you can see it's really starting to have that impact now. I just want to drop the blacks down a little bit, and I'll have a little bit of a play with some of these now. Let's just bring the contrast back down. And yes, you can see now it's really bringing the focus right onto the eye and giving us the detail in everything that we require around here. The background sky is completely blown out. And let's have a look at our presence. So let's have a look at that. We need a little bit more texture. Quite often with a high key image, you really need to focus on that. So I think the clarity, we don't want to overdo it, but I think the clarity and the texture are critical in this. I'm not going to touch the dehaze on this. I also want to balance off the eye exposure. So what I'm going to do is right click on my first mask, duplicate and invert that mask. So that gives us everything. But what I really want to do is just drop the exposure down on that. This gives us slightly less white on that, but it also brings us a bit more detail in the main body of the horse's face. So let's close that and we'll go back to our exposure and we'll just increase our exposure very slightly. There we go, that's excellent. And what we need to do now is look at the noise. Look at the noise that has been created through our edits. So let's have a look at the detail pane, and what we need to do is look at the noise reduction. So let's up the luminance. You can see it's starting to get rid of that noise now. I also want to up the detail. I want to make sure that it doesn't destroy the detail that we have in that eye. You can see That's excellent. Let's got rid of most of the noise. Let's just up that just a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Absolutely. Let's just drop that one. Normally I find that anything above 60 to 70 is a good one for the luminance noise reduction. The final thing I'm going to do to this image, which is something I very rarely do, is go down to the effects, and I'm going to do a positive, a white vignette around this image. It doesn't need to be too strong. It just really needs to fade out in those corners, as we can see at the top and bottom, really to bring the attention straight into the eye. And here is our final colour high key image. I think you'll agree this is a really powerful image. The detail in the eye, the real attention it has. And now we'll be moving on to the black and white. And as you'll appreciate, creating a true black and white image is not just a question of clicking on the monochrome Adobe profile. So let's get started. Let's create another virtual copy of this. So we've created another virtual copy of our color high key edit so that we can now adjust this for black and white processing. Let's first apply the Adobe Monochrome to convert it to black and white. What I also want to do is I want to do a 1:1 crop to give you an idea of how tight you can make this image. I'm going to move the eye very slightly to the left to give you an idea of what the difference between the 4:5 and the 1:1 crop will look like. And now let's make some adjustments, considering that this is now black and white. So I just want to pull the exposure back just a little bit. But what I really want to do is up the contrast on this. That's 100 is way too much. I think about there is a good one. Let's just pull the highlights back up just a little bit. The shadows as well. There we go. That was an excellent one. And then the whites, I want to pull the whites down, and also I think the blacks are fine actually, just a very minor adjustment. But now what I want to do is I want to up the texture. I want to really emphasize the black and white nature of this. Right, that's really looking powerful now. Finally, what I want to do is look at the black and white tab. So let's have a little look at this. Now, there's two areas. If we remember in the color image, the eye has quite an orange brown to it. So what I really want to do is bring that out so we can really bring color. We can take it two ways. If we take it down, but that one dulls the eye too much. But if we increase that, you can see it's really given us some detail in the eye. And then if we remember, this is very white. So what I'm going to do is just drag the blue down a bit. You can see that that is really emphasizing now the darker areas of the image, because we're taking there, the filtration that we're doing is against the blues and the reds, orange browns of the original image. I'm also then going to make just some very subtle changes to the vignette. The vignette's quite strong for this image, but it's just a little bit over. And there we have our final image, really strong and powerful image. And finally, let's take a look at our two images side by side. I'll have a look at the reference images. We've got our collection down at the bottom. I'll put the color version on the left-hand side. You can see the difference that makes. We've got the color and we've got the black and white version. And I'm sure we each have our favorites in terms of composition. In fact, now that I've seen my reference, I believe that I've really overcropped that one. So let's get out of reference. That's fine. I think that is a better one. We need a little bit more white space on the left hand side. Let's get back into that reference. That's much more powerful now. That is a really strong couple of images. As we look at our final images, please remember to like and subscribe. Your support for this channel is massively appreciated. I do hope that you found some of the tips and tricks in this useful, and that if you do try this, please feel free to share them. And remember to check me out on social media, where I share a lot more images on Vero in particular. Thank you very much again, and I will see you soon.